Heartland Waterfowl presents Behind the Blind Podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of Behind the Blind. We are on the road to Mound City, Missouri in our off-season series with a bunch of great partners that we have with Heartland Waterfowl. I'd like to remind you that the Behind the Blind podcast brought to you by Double T British Kennels. For more than 20 years, Double T British Kennels have imported dogs directly from Great Britain to build superior bloodlines. Their top-of-the-line dogs are proven in the field in major field trials. Learn more at britlabs.com and tell them that Heartland Waterfowl sent you. Also, a reminder that we're giving away a swag pack with this episode. Heartland Waterfowl swag pack, and all you got to do is enter by joining the brand new Heartland Waterfowl newsletter. It's easy to do by going to heartlandwaterfowl.com. At the very top of the page, you'll see there in the menu where you can click subscribe. Give us your information. We'll pick a winner, and you'll get some really cool swag. We got hats and hoodies and T-shirts, and even more coming out in the near future, and lots of really cool updates. You can stay up to date on everything that's going on with Heartland Waterfowl by joining the Heartland Waterfowl newsletter. We're doing this off-season series. We've got a lot of other great sponsors that we're going to be bringing on, like Logan Williamson from First Light, Corey Foskett of Tangle Free, Ryan Yarnell, Tex from Turtle Box, also Hunter Colbert from Kent Cartridge, and so many more. But today's guest, I mentioned Mound City. We're at Dirty Duck Coffee headquarters. Like to welcome to the podcast, Buck Heath and Jay Peterson, boys.
Howdy, howdy.
Here you are. We've done it. This is fun, man. This is kind of where it all started for me. I'm excited to have you guys here because I'm not ashamed in any way, shape, or form, and frankly, I'm quite proud that I tell all of my buddies that it's Buck and Jay, along with my buddy Paul, our buddy Paul, who introduced me to waterfowl hunting years ago. So it's kind of full circle to be partners with you guys with what you're doing with Dirty Duck Coffee, and get to experience some hunts with you as we go on this waterfowl industry journey, and kind of bring it back to where it all started here at the old Dirty Duck.
Absolutely. Welcome, Ronnie. We're excited, man. I've been talking about doing a podcast here since we started this deal, and it's funny to see this thing come full circle from where we all started, not being in the industry, just being avid hunters, and now we're all sort of doing our own thing and mixing it up and making stuff happen.
So I'm going to do this just to kind of break the ice, because you guys have been waterfowl hunting a lot longer than I have. You guys were kind of the guys that brought me in. Buck actually was the first, and then I think it was one of the first hunts that I did with you that Jay was invited.
Yep.
And then, of course, through that process, I was introduced to Paul, and then he invited me down a few times to Clinton to hunt with him. What is and Buck, I guess I'll start with your first memory of waterfowl hunting with me, or the first time that you took me waterfowl hunting?
I'd say it was the time we were pheasant hunting out in Belleville, and we hit that blizzard.
Yeah.
And we were, we called the hunt, half a day early.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I were driving down 36.
Highway 36 in Kansas.
Yep, that's right. We were heading this way, and I just remember I was going as fast as I could, but not so fast that we were going to end up in a ditch.
It was literally a blizzard. I mean, it was coming down sideways.
Yep. And I was white-knuckled, and I was driving, and you were like, slow down. What the hell are you doing? And I was like, we got to get back and duck hunt on this front, and you just couldn't figure it out for the life of me.
Right. I was like, it's a duck. What are we trying to kill ourselves for?
And one thing I remember, we had our buddy Matty with us.
Yeah.
Remember, he was coming down with the flu, and I was like, come on, get your stuff. Let's go. I got waders for you here. Grab this coat. And you're like, I don't know, man. I got to work, tomorrow. And, I better just start heading home in the weather. And I said, I don't give up.
Yeah.
What you got to do tomorrow? We're going duck hunting right now. And it turned out to be one of them special days that I'll never forget. It was kind of quick limits. It was a lot of good conversation. Mm-hmm. We sat there and talked and watched the ducks just finish after we were done. And then right at the end of the day, the front blew through and the sky turned orange and red, and ducks were green-winged teal were flying everywhere. It was one of those days I was like, I just ruined him.
Yeah. Well, here we are, ruined.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember everything that you said there rings true to me. Some of the things that really stick out to me was the fact that I was dressed like an upland bird hunter because that's what we showed up to do. And so I had a red hoodie on. Yes. I'm sitting in your blind with a red hoodie. Everybody's decked out in their camo. And I remember, I tell this story frequently, you know, like I didn't know what I didn't know. And you talk about ruining me because not every hunting's like that. That was like literally one of those days that you remember as one of the best duck hunts of your life. Yep. Because there was every species of duck flying in the sky in all kinds of different directions. You can imagine like when you're watching Top Gun and all these planes are like flying and doing all these different maneuvers. And that was kind of like the ducks. Like they were just, it was amazing that I'm sitting there as a person who had never done it before and thinking, how are there that many birds in the sky and they're not flying into each other? It was literally the term black cloud. Yep. It was a black cloud of ducks in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, we stood at the parking lot and just stood there and watched them at our trucks going, look, they're low, they're high, they're flying the ditch, they're going north, south, east, west, they're going everywhere. It was a pretty special day.
I remember the teal worked first, and then we started just crushing them. And I remember Duck saying, okay, we need to stop because we're going to limit out on teal if we're not. We need to wait for the big ducks to show up. And I didn't even know, what all the different species were.
Right.
I remember being hooked after that particular hunt so much that like I'm calling you, I'm bugging the hell out of you. Like, what was that species? And the one that looks like this, what is that? So there's a pintail, there's a widgeon, there's a gadwall, there's a teal, there's two different kinds of teals. You mean there's a blue wing and there's a green wing, and the only bird, the only species I was aware of was the mallard. Anyway, it was definitely a memorable hunt. And then we stood out back here, and I'm holding up that stringer of all those different ducks, and the snow is falling, and that was super cool. Jay, what do you remember when you got to hunt with me that first time?
Yeah, so I believe, if I can remember right, it was 2009.
Was it?
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was earlier.
Yeah, so I just moved back to Kansas City. We lived in St. Louis for 5 years, and so I was coming up late for some reason. I was getting off work or whatever to come up to hang out for the weekend, and Buck's like, "Hey, got a couple buddies here. One guy is kind of new to hunting. I think you might like him." And I was like, great, cool. And that's the awesome part about duck hunting, meeting new people and having new friends. And so, of course, we jump in the blind, out at the Cheezick blind that we had, that Buck had for a couple of years there. And we just had a blast. It was, I don't think, it wasn't like your first time.
No,
it was a slower day, but
sure.
What I remember though, is you and I both pulled up on a mallard drake at the same time, and it was simultaneous shot, and then just high fiving,
right.
And then we were just like, did we just become best friends? And that was just kind of how our friendship started. And then, we hit it off and we're buddies, and you came down to hunt my place outside of Kansas City. And I was like, this guy actually wants to go out and swat mosquitoes disguised as teal hunting. And you wanted to do it. And so you came out teal season that next year with me, and then we just started making it a habit to meet up here every year or wherever else to go hunt together.
So you hit on a couple things there that that resonate with me. One, I remember that first time that we hunted, I wasn't dressed properly. I didn't have the right attire. I didn't have the right gloves. Do you remember this?
No.
I got cold, bitter cold. It was a cold day. And the gloves that I had were those, like, I don't even know how to explain them. They're the cheap, like, Walmart brown gloves that are just like a little cloth. I mean, the wrong gloves.
Like gardening gloves.
Yes. That's a really good way of explaining it. And you're like, well, these are the only other gloves I've got. And they were decoy gloves that you let me use. And I was like, what am I doing with these that come up to my elbow? Didn't know what a decoy glove was, right? So I was literally shooting and hunting in the blind with the decoy glove on. And, of course, later found out what that actually was. But then you talked about the teal hunt that I did on your place and fighting the mosquitoes. Again, completely naive, don't know what you don't know. I don't know that I've gone teal hunting since because I hate mosquitoes that much.
Yeah, I don't get that mad at them that I'm out there swatting mosquitoes. And I don't get it, and I feel sorry for, like, the people in Louisiana where that's their duck season.
Yeah.
They're, for at least the first half, they're swatting mosquitoes. I don't know how those guys do it down there.
I don't either. I ticks and mosquitoes, like I can deal with spiders and snakes, but I absolutely hate ticks and mosquitoes. Can't stand it. So while I enjoyed every minute that I was getting to spend with you guys out there, I learned that duck hunting in September may not be my jam. Might not be. So, but no, great memories, of course. And then things just kind of evolved. I remember Buck typically throws parties up here, the old Mound Vegas, or is that what you call it? Mound Vegas?
Mound's Vegas, yeah.
And I came up here and of course we're having a lot of cocktails, and I remember telling him, this is a few years later, that at the time I was still working in radio and that I was like, hey, I want to do something in this. I want to like maybe have a TV show. The waterfowl hunting, of course, at the time was really probably stupid to you guys to hear because I was still really green as a waterfowl hunter. And now I'm supposed to be this guy in front of a camera, like acting like I know what I'm doing. But that was just how naive I was. And Buck was telling me, he goes like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't make your passion your job. You know, you remember that?
Yep, absolutely.
And I didn't listen. And now here we are, just finished up our 12th season of doing Heartland Waterfowl. So
yeah, glad you didn't listen to me.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which, if you remember, you guys came out and shot some of your initial B-roll footage at my place.
That's right. We were trying to get part of our pilot.
The
Blackface footage.
Ronnie was trying to get canceled before you got canceled.
I literally had blackface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't your... I mean,
the tube exploded.
The tube
like
exploded.
there was air got in there, and I was trying to push out the face paint, and it's happened to everybody. But it was a bright day, and we were going to be hiding in the corn stalks.
Yep.
So we were trying to, reduce the shine a little. Well, I didn't have any issue with that because it was all over my hand. You can't put it back in the tube, so I just decided to put it all over my face. And
You're full incognito that day.
I was, and that picture probably still lives out there on social media somewhere.
Oh, I send it to you every year. I get the memories on Facebook.
We shot a few ducks that day too.
We had a great hunt.
Yeah.
And what I remember, we were like letting them get out a little bit further so they'd have the splash. So we had some great long shots.
So we had the camera effect.
And then you come back and you're like, yeah, my cameramen weren't quite ready. And I remember like, we didn't really get that much footage. I was like, that was some great footage we could have.
And then
you live and you learn.
Yeah, then he sent me the photo of it, and I'm like, you're hunting with Jimmy Kimmel trying to pretend he's Charles Barkley or what? Is that what's going on out there,
Man, there are stories after stories after stories of some of the dumb stuff that we did when we first got started. But, we didn't know what we didn't know. And it took a couple of years, at least 1 year for sure, for us to kind of figure out. I was fortunate because I got, connected with Logan, and Logan had many years of waterfowl hunting, and he was really good at it. And then we surrounded ourselves with other guys. And so I had the business savvy. I had the experience for media, working in radio, and knowing how to, I guess, launch the business and infiltrate sponsors. We were fortunate because we were kind of riding the coattails of Heartland Bow Hunter, which obviously had years of credibility in the industry. And so fortunately, we didn't completely look like a bunch of idiots out there because, I was surrounded by guys who had been doing it longer than I had. But there was still this thing, like we knew how to kill ducks, but we didn't know how to get them on camera. So there was this acclimation process of, we're bringing this high dollar camera equipment, trying to get over that fear factor of the camera getting dropped in the water or getting muddy or, ruining the camera. And then just how do you hide the camera so that you can get the footage? Because as you know, from waterfowl hunting, like that's half the battle. It's scouting, finding the birds, and then having a good hide. And if you can do that, you're pretty much set up for success. But we just kept sticking with it. Fortunately, I had good friends like you guys that kind of were very patient with me in the process, which you don't see that a lot today. So I tell people all the time when I say, yeah, the guys from Dirty Duck Coffee, they're the ones who introduced me to waterfowl hunting. I am truly grateful because it would have been real easy for you guys to be like, man, this is more of a pain in the ass to bring this guy along. He doesn't know what he's doing. We got to hold his hand, teach him how to do everything. It's not like I had never been hunting before. I grew up hunting, deer hunting and upland bird hunting. So I could shoot, and I was, it wasn't about gun safety or anything. It was just understanding all the processes that are involved in setting up for a duck hunt. So, yeah.
Well, and I got to watch you evolve with Heartland because I was on the early hunts, and I remember, some of the early hunts, you're like, who didn't charge these batteries? Where's this lens? Why'd you leave it at the hotel? And it's like, what the hell are we doing? And, and then it was, we got to make sure they're in this particular spot to kill them. We can't shoot them if they're too high or out of the lens. And then, fast forward a couple, 4 or 5 years, it's like, and after that, it's like, is there a camera guy even out there?
Yeah.
It's like, we're just hunting, and all of a sudden they'll be like, yeah, I'm on him, and it's like seamless. You guys have gotten so good at it.
Yeah, I mean, like anything with repetition, you're going to get better at it. And I think we just put in the reps and kind of figured it out. But there was definitely those first couple of years were a challenge. It was like herding cats, or what do you call that? Controlled chaos. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Mass confusion often. So the first 2-3 years that we did Heartland Waterfowl, I remember it was highly stressful. And of course, me as one of the leaders of the team, I'm thinking, we got to get these shots for our sponsors. And I'm thinking about the money side of it, because if we don't have that, we don't have a show, And so I remember being stressful. And so you got to experience that.
Yeah, it went from where are we going to set up? The sun's going to be over there. How are we going to get this shot? To like almost you guys don't even speak when we show up at a field now. It's like, you got this? Okay, cool.
Yeah, everybody knows their roles. We just
set up. Yep.
And we're a well-oiled machine. So
absolutely.
It's been a crazy ride. Let's talk about, Buck giving me this words of wisdom about, don't make your passion your job.
Right.
Just think what you could have been. And here you are.
Well, and here you are is the point, is that now you decided to get into the industry.
But no one had very high expectations of me. Okay. I've already outpunted my coverage here. Okay.
Tell me about how, I know, but for those who are listening, we've been best friends for years, but, this Dirty Duck Coffee thing, it started with just a logo. It started with kind of a theme being this place where we're doing this episode from. And then, hey, let's sell some coffee. How did that whole thing get started?
Just kind of started with this old Main Street building I bought to be my personal duck lodge, kind of a party area downstairs, hangout area, and live upstairs on the second floor, big loft apartment. It's kind of like my man cave, kind of like my lake house. So kind of my happy place. I got things to work on because it's an old building, and get to come up here and go duck hunting. I'm like, man, this is cool. It's right on Main Street. I can walk to the grocery store. I can walk to the gas station, restaurants across the street, little bar down the way. Just kind of neat little town. It's kind of a getaway. There's not a stoplight in this town. There's not the hustle and bustle. So I just really enjoyed this being a getaway. And, throughout it all, we just kind of developed into, Tony Twyman, one of our good friends. I'll give him credit. He came up one time, and my previous spot that I was renting right down the way, which kind of led me to buy this place. No one was in it all year, and the roof probably leaked. And every time we got in there, it just smelled mildewy and musty, and
the musty duck.
So joking around, I said, we named it the Musty Duck. And, everybody around town was like, are you at the Musty Duck? And so when I bought this place, we started doing a lot of construction, and Tony Twyman goes, what are you going to call this place? The Dirty Duck? Because it's so dirty? And I said, I'll think of something clever. Don't worry. And it just kind of stuck.
Wow.
And so it went from just making a couple hats for fun, like, and koozies, like, hey, thanks for coming. All the branding was strictly for fun, kind of a joke, like, never intended it to be any kind of business. And, once I started making hats, people wanted to start buying them, and I just was messing around with a website, which led into too much time on my hands during COVID. And one day I called Jay and I said, hey, I got this great idea.
Is that how you remember it, Jay?
Yeah, actually it was.
And somebody should have told me.
That was a dumb idea.
It wasn't. That's bullshit.
But, I was like, hey, every duck hunter, it's you're up early, it's cold, you need hot coffee. And I'm like, it goes with the hats and the hoodies. I just felt like we needed something more. And so we landed on coffee and called Jay up and said, I got this idea. And he said, yeah, that's awesome. I said, I want you to be, part of it, and let's do it. And, Jay was really instrumental in the beginning on making things happen. Sometimes you can have an idea and it doesn't go anywhere. And So Jay kind of took the next step and then the next step. And
He
then,
was your execution guy, the guy who took the idea and actually started executing a plan.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
It's like all the like creative, cool, things you see on social media and all that, and design, all that. Like that's his brain, and I'm more like, hey, operationally, we need to do X, Y, and Z to get there. And so I think it's a good combo to have. That we bring.
You're playing to your strengths.
Yeah, we do, absolutely.
Yeah, like all of a sudden, this came from an idea to Jay's going, "Hey, I got this artist that'll design coffee bags for us." I was like, "What? Oh crap, that's pretty good." And then we started tweaking them, and and then one idea leads to the next, and that's kind of where we're at today. And we're still have some things to release and some ideas coming out this summer. So
cool. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the initial hurdles were? I mean, like any new business, you're kind of in the as I like to say, aspiring entrepreneur, right? And so kind of a mentality that entrepreneurs have to embody is, every time you take one step forward, you have to expect that you're going to end up taking 2 steps back. And that's just going to be kind of a repeat process until you finally get to where you want to be. And in some ways, you just kind of live that or embody that for the rest of that venture. Do you remember what some of those big first hurdles were?
I think it's trying to narrow down your target and get focused with it and release the right things. There's a million things that you can go out and stick the Dirty Duck logo on and try to release. And I think if you have way too much product and way too many SKUs and all that, you can get bogged down in inventory and all that. And so it's finding a way to streamline it so that you can create revenue that'll help build a business, get the name out there. And so I think just kind of staying in the right lanes and then knowing when to shut down that lane and say, no, that's not the right direction to go. Let's change it and go a different direction.
So how long did that take? I mean, you obviously, you already had the logo. So now you're basically having to find a roastery that's going to work with you, right?
Yeah, which we started with one and it was good, but it wasn't the perfect fit for us. And then, I don't know, I can't remember where we found our current roaster. That's incredible, but
yeah. Absolutely. Just stroke of luck one day, kind of reached out on Instagram or I liked their post and real small roaster in Texas, and they do a great job for us. So that was my goal is hey, if we're going to do coffee, I'm going to go out and find the best at it that I can find. I don't want to be hey, I'm going to make beer in my basement in a bucket and I hope you guys like it. It's no, I'm going to go find somebody who makes the highest quality product I can. And that's when we're going to put in our bags. Yeah, we got a clever logo. We got some fun bags. And we don't want it to be like a cheap bottle of wine that has something funny on it you buy once just for a novelty. We're okay, we got a great logo, great brand. Our coffee inside's even better. So we're going to create a following. People are going to come back and buy a second, third time on, so on.
So you talked about wanting to find those first few SKUs or first blends that were really going to launch the company because there's so many coffee blends out there. How did you decide on what blends to start the launch of Dirty Duck Coffee?
I mean, we wanted, you had to have a basic that everybody could drink. And so that was the initial, French roast first flight. And so it's something that everybody could drink, good, solid, medium roast. People like dark. My wife's a huge dark roast person. That's what she drinks about every day. So a good dark roast to go along with it, a light roast. And then we're what's something a little bit different that maybe other people don't have? And that's where the high velocity came from. So those are the first 4. And we said, we're going to roll with those and then we'll see what evolves from there. And then it's just kind of kept growing and growing from there.
How did you come up with the names? Because they're pretty unique. I mean, they're very creative names. Was that you, Buck?
I get, the notepad on my iPhone, and I was just coming up with every silly idea. And when I do, I'd write it down. And
what was one name that you remember that you liked but you never used? Ooh. Was there one?
I mean, probably First Light instead of First Flight.
Okay.
Things we would throw it out there and say, well, I get it. That's close, but it doesn't quite have that pop. and just change one word and boom, that's it.
Gotcha.
So something like that.
Yeah, it seems like everything just happens, and when you know it's right, it's right. And then I'll call Jay, and we'll be like, "Sun's up, guns up," and he's like, "I like it." Or like Morningwood, we're sitting at we knew we had this really good Brazil coffee, that was killer that we wanted, to release, and we're sitting in the middle of a field one day, just a slow day hunting, and I said, "Hey Jay, how about we put a wood duck on the bag and call it Morningwood?" And he goes, "I'm good with it." And we didn't know how everybody was going to react to it. So actually we just started with the, not the fully printed bags. We started with a label bag, a sticker bag, a black bag with a label put on it. Cause it's like, what if it's not PC or whatever?
Right. And what if it flops? Then you're going to have to change it.
Yep. We're kind of testing the waters, and all of a sudden one of our top sellers.
I remember when Morningwood came out.
We launched it with Heartland.
With us.
Yeah.
We were
Waggle's blind.
Yep. I remember that. We were making some videos to promote it.
Yeah.
Get up, stay up.
Yeah. Another slow day that we had a lot of fun.
Yes.
That was a really slow day.
We've had a few slow
Making
days.
silly videos. A lot of them we couldn't put online.
Probably should, so we get canceled.
Yeah.
But you were pushing the envelope, and that was the thing about it. Would you say that, because now you guys are so involved in this, you are going to all these expos. I'm going to be hanging out with you guys at the Delta Waterfowl Expo in Oklahoma City coming up at the end of July. So if you hear this, come and see us at the Dirty Duck booth. Yeah. When you have people come up to your booth and they see all of these creative names for the different blends that you have, Morningwood has got to be the most popular, the one that brings the most attention.
It is. And what's funny is it's like the wives that are nudging their husbands saying, "You need some of this." So that's the funny part, is that it's not really as much the guys coming up and laughing about it, which they do, but it's a lot of the wives are nudging the husbands and having a good time with it.
And the husband will be like, "I ain't had that in years," So it's a lot of tongue in cheek stuff, and that's what we want to do. We want to have fun without being over the line. We want to have a lot of a little bit of humor without being too inappropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Well, I mean, it's so tasteful when you put a wood duck on the label. Yeah. I mean, I digress. Anyway, so you came out with the First Flight. You came out with, because Morningwood wasn't one of the first ones. You had First Flight. You talked about High Velocity. You said there was two others.
Dark Dynasty,
which was a kind of a play on words with Duck Dynasty at the time that was real popular.
Yep.
And what was the fourth?
The Sun's Up.
Sun's Up,
Guns
Guns
Up.
Colombian.
Up.
Yeah,
All right.
the Colombian.
What is the most popular or the highest generating SKU that you have of coffee blends?
Cinnamon teal.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. And then the boat ride.
Okay.
Yeah. So it goes, and actually recently, I think we're seeing a trend. Morningwood, just because of some stuff we're doing online with it, is starting to trend up.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All pun intended.
So the Missouri boat ride, how did you come up with that one?
That was so back in the day. I don't want to date myself, but at the Musty Duck, we didn't have any cable. There was no streaming. There was no Netflix on your phone. So I have a bunch of VHS tapes and DVDs.
Okay.
So we'd hunt the morning. We'd come back, cook lunch, and then we'd lay around and watch, some Clint Eastwood movie or John Wayne movie. Until it was time to go back out and hunt again. And that was our TV at the time. We weren't going to have cable installed for the 2 months that we were, staying at duck camp.
Yeah.
So we made the best of it. And, one of my go-tos, one of my favorite movies is Outlaw Josie Wales.
Oh.
And there's a scene in there where, he shoots the rope. They're trying to cross over, the Union guys are. And he says, we got some in this territory called Missouri boat ride.
Okay.
And that's kind of where that came from. Yep.
All right.
Yep. And then I had an artist do a rendition of, Josie Wales holding a mallard.
Actually, if
cool
I can
deal.
do this right on the camera, that's it right there.
It's Flint Westwood.
Right there. No, it's right. Well, it's that one too, but I'm pointing to that one right there on the camera.
Yeah.
That's the. I'm not doing a very good job of this. If
That's
you're
the
watching
front
on
of the
YouTube
bag.
or Spotify, that's the what am I trying to say? That's the label or
The front of the bag.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and it's it's a tribute. It just like Dark Dynasty, play on words from Duck Dynasty. It's a tribute because we love those guys. So we're not trying to rip off ideas when it's Dark Dynasty, Duck Dynasty. It's like, no, we're doing this because we love you guys.
Right.
And
that's what we grew up on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. And then you got into cold brews, right? Or the Eider. What's that one called?
King Eider cold brew.
The King Eider cold brew.
Yeah.
The ladies really like that one, I hear. Is that true?
It is. Yeah. It's great. It's light, refreshing, something cold for the summertime. It's what I drink, nearly every day during the summer. Yeah.
So you weren't really a coffee drinker.
I never had coffee in my life before the company.
Really?
I had literally never taken a sip of it. I was like I hated the people that were like, I cannot exist without my coffee. And I'm like, just get up and go to work. How come you can't exist? How come we can't get out the door
and now
without
you're
having
one of those
coffee?
Guys?
Kind of a situation. Yeah. And so I have not gone since without having coffee since we started the company. And like, it took me a while. Like, we were doing samples. And so I had to get acclimated to it. But it's just like anything else. It's an acquired taste.
Sure.
Like, you don't drink your first beer and it's like, man, I love the taste of beer.
Yeah.
Same with whiskey. So you acquire a taste to it. Your taste buds change. And
yeah.
So, yeah. But I love the cold brew. Drink one
so
every single day.
That's your favorite?
During the summertime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say overall is your favorite?
The next cup. Whatever, the next bag.
Really?
Yeah. So
okay.
I like them all. I like, we have a variety, so you can get whatever you want. You feel like something different. I want something lighter today. I want something darker today. I want, like the chocolatey undertones of the morning wood. I'm going to have that today. So I like to change it up a little bit.
Sure. What about you? Do you have a favorite?
I would say gun to head. You got to pick one, drink the rest of your life. I'd go with Missouri Boat Ride.
Really?
Yep. I like the little bit of flavor, even though, I grew up black coffee. I never measured it. I always poured way too much in, and I always used to say, if you can't chew it, it's not strong enough. But I do really enjoy the flavors, and I'd have to say, like, gun to head, rest of my life, got to pick one bag. I'd go with the Missouri Boat Ride for the flavor.
Okay.
A little bit of flavor. It's not sweet.
So. I'm going to have to tell you guys that the High Velocity is probably my favorite.
And you've been like day one
from the beginning.
High Velocity.
Yeah.
You haven't wavered.
No, I mean, well, this is getting a little ahead of myself because I was eventually going to get to the Gratitude and Empathy that I partnered with you guys on,
sure.
Which is a similar blend to Morningwood.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes.
Uh-huh.
So because I have so much of that at the house, I drink that, but I do like the punch that comes with the caffeine punch, that is, with the High Velocity. It's a good, rich flavor.
They're pretty similar blends.
I think so too.
High Velocity's got the more caffeine in it, but it's
yeah.
a very, very similar bean. So
gotcha. Does that one sell pretty good, High Velocity, or do there people that just say that's way too much caffeine?
No, it's it's the energy drink type people. Yeah. That's their coffee of choice.
All right, and then so here on the table you've got now canned cold brews. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, we said, hey, there's lots of requests, people on the go. They said, we love to stop by and, grab something out of the convenience store or have something I can just pick up, throw in the, now you see it a lot. People hunting out, they're out in the timber. You can't take a, thermos and pour it and all that. And so they still need their caffeine. And so a can's an easy way to throw it in. It doesn't spill. And so we said, yeah, let's find a way to can it. And so we took the King Eider and put it in a can.
Okay.
So that's what is in the original, our first blend of the cold. So.
And is that officially out now?
Yeah, so that's been out. We've been out for about, 60, 80 days, something like that, with the cold brew in the can.
And is the only place that you can get that is through the Dirty Duck Coffee website?
Yeah, right now we just have it online.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there any place that you can get this outside of your website? Are you working with any retailers?
Yeah.
A lot?
We are, but for the cold brew right now, we're waiting. So we're going to roll out 4 or 5 more flavors.
Oh, okay.
And so we're kind of, going to roll out one at a time and then eventually, tackle a distribution where we're in gas stations, grocery stores. But we want to have a complete lineup before we start approaching these folks to get in there. So that's kind of where we're at. We're just kind of a slow rollout. Instead of saving everything for one big rollout, we just want to start introducing it so we can get it moving a little bit. So
Okay. What was like? Oh, the K cups. That's where I was going to go because I got a little ahead of myself. The K cups came before this cold brew,
Correct.
right? And so that had to have been. Did that live up to the expectation of how well that was going to improve your business?
Absolutely. It's a huge request.
So people
and
still use Keurigs that much,
all
huh?
the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and we just continue to see that volume go up. So yeah, it's been a huge popular thing.
All right. What else is in the future?
can't tell you.
You can't tell me?
I have to kill you.
Well, we have one coming out next week or a week from whenever you see this podcast.
Yeah.
Near future.
What is today?
Today's
the
Thursday.
29th.
October? October?
No, it is May 29th.
Yep.
And so you're saying the first week of June,
Yep.
roughly, that you're going to
Yep,
roll out
first week of June.
And what is it again?
Vanilla cold brew.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
French vanilla.
What is I know one question I was going to ask is, it all started with apparel though. Before it started with coffee, you guys were just selling shirts and hats. And so how much of your focus is on still staying creative with that kind of, graphic design and just playing on words and trying to be quirky or, creative to where something that's going to resonate with somebody to where they'll want to buy a shirt or a hat?
Oh, probably not enough. I mean, there's a lot of ideas I have, and I'm like, we really need to just get after this and do it and update it on the back end. But we have a pretty good catalog of hats and, fishing shirts, sun shirts, hoodies, T-shirts. And, we've really been focused on the coffee and moving that forward.
Mm-hmm.
But probably something I need to do a better job of is coming out with, new apparel.
How many different SKUs of shirts and hats do you think you guys have?
Oh, shit. Probably 30, 40.
40,
Wow.
50.
What's the most popular?
Oh, I'm in the duck stuff.
I'm into duck stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
absolutely.
And that's just the hat, right? Do you have that on a shirt
We
too?
got it on a shirt, too.
Do you?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is
And a-
really
and a
cool.
hoodie.
I remember when
We're
we
the
were
first ones to do it, by the way.
I came to Nashville to hang out with you guys for the NWTF, and I remember hanging out at the booth and people were walking by and you got it on display and people can touch it and feel it and put it on, whatever, and that seemed to be one that a lot of people were gravitating to. But I will tell you that as a kid who grew up loving to hunt upland birds,
Oh, yeah.
I laughed so hard when I saw the Dirty Duck Coffee. Is it the cock blockers?
Yep.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
I just cannot believe I'm, as far as I know, the first one to ever think of it or do it or put it on because you've seen the corny, welcome to Kansas, home of the big cocks,
Yeah.
I got the corny hat. And, I went to South Dakota with my dad and cousins and uncle and our crew, my brother. And me and my cousin Drew, I like blocking, being a duck hunter. I don't have a pointing dog, so I like getting down at the end of the field, hiding a little bit. And, when those birds get out high and fast and you kind of get the hero shots or the zero shots.
Yeah.
But we turned into the all-time blockers. And so it was like, okay, we're going to push this field to the north. You blockers get down there. And I was just joking around. I said, hey, we're the cock blockers. And we all got a chuckle out of it. And then from there on out, I was like, all right, we're going to walk this to the south. You cock blockers go down there where this point, Jim Anderson was saying that. And so the next year, very first morning, I made hoodies for my cousin and I.
Oh.
Bright orange hoodies
Yeah.
with the cock blockers logo. And I said, put this on. And we came down ready to go, ready to leave, and had these bright orange cock blocker hoodies on. The hats followed, and so we got a good kick out of it. So again, one of those things we like to push the envelope, and not that inappropriate. So
No, not at all. It's a play on words.
Yep.
Do those sell well for you?
Pretty well. We haven't
Yeah.
really, it sells pretty well.
Yeah.
We probably don't push it as much as the other
Yeah.
stuff right now, but it's evolving.
Sure, it's pretty neat. I think
Yep.
I think it's hilarious. You got any other creative, tell me, do you have a slogan or a certain play on words, as we talked about, that maybe you might be coming out with in the future? Does something kind of come to the top of your mind?
Yeah, I do, but
You don't want to say?
no.
Well,
Well, I mean,
there's more coming in the future.
The first kind of slogan, is the shoot 'em in the face.
Yeah, that is true.
And that's where we first started throwing that on our gear at the beginning, and something we grew up doing, getting ready to call the shot. It was shoot 'em in the face.
Right on.
And that was something that obviously we didn't think of, but was passed down through people we hunted with before us, saying it before we were hunting with them. But just kind of something we like to keep alive, I guess. And some people love it. They come up to us, oh my God, you need that on a hat. We say that at our club. And I'm like, that's awesome. So
wow. You guys have really, it's crazy to me, and I'm not trying to, this was about to come out sounding negative, and so I don't intend it to sound like that, but this thing really, from a 30,000 foot view or from an outside perspective, has grown pretty significantly, pretty quick. I mean, this really kind of got underway during COVID. Is that
right.
correct?
Yep.
And now you guys are in retailers, and you are going to a lot of these different shows. A lot of different outfitters are using your blends specifically in their lodges. I mean, how many different outfitters are you working with?
Oh, I don't even know.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Really?
Couple hundred. Yeah.
Wow. So how did that all, I mean, was it, do you attribute that to just the creativity of the brand and the culture that was created with that? Or was it just the networking and the hustle that came with it, that, all the different shows that the expos that you went to? I mean, how did that come about so quickly for you?
I mean, it's a combo of all the above.
I'm sure.
But
what would you attribute it to the most?
I mean, I think it goes back to the beginning of choosing to have quality of a product over everything else. Because you always have that choice. Do we go mass produced and cut costs to make a little bit more profit and sacrifice taste? Or do you just say, no, we're going to lead with taste first and make sure it's really good, that people remember it and want to put it in their lodge? Because there's lots of coffees to choose from, but people want to have a good, memorable experience. And then it's got the tie to the brand of the industry and all that, and the sport, that people are like, yeah, I could see that doing well and resonating with our guests, and then they leave with a couple bags to take home with them. And so I mean, that's probably where it started, and then it just became the networking side of things. So, and I think, at the end of the day, like Buck and I are, we're not about, hey, who's going to be the best hunter in the world? Like, we're all one big community. Yeah. So it's not this big pissing match of who's got better this, that, the other, and, who hunts better and who hides better and who uses what camo and what gun and all that. Like, no, like, let's just be all one big family and take care of each other and help each other, and then pass it on. I think that's where we're at in our stage of life. Who are we passing it on to? Who are we getting introduced to? Sure. So
did you find it? So I'm asking this question because I feel like I experienced it, when I first got into the industry, because I too thought that it was one big brotherhood, the waterfowl community. And in a lot of ways it is. I don't want to speak disparagingly on it, but I was surprised. You talk about the pissing contest, or I'll even call it a big dick contest. Were you surprised to see that there was that much of it in the industry?
Actually, I've seen the opposite.
Really?
Going to all these shows, being in like the waterfowl community. I've said it before on other podcasts. If I never make a dime doing this, the people I've met through this process are worth its weight in gold.
No doubt.
It's like you can't put a value in. We've also seen it's not a pissing contest with this community. Sorry. It's everybody wants to build each other up. And so that's what I've really found. Like, everybody's trying to support, hey, you should talk to these people. And that's what I've experienced, going.
I'm glad that you've had that experience.
Yep.
I can't say that for what we do.
Sure.
Now I'm challenged to find the right way to say this. Well, Jay alluded to it earlier, like, who kills the most ducks? There's those guys that are, that they want to break out their logbook or whatever. The guys who actually have a bird hunting logbook, and they talk about, on this particular day, the conditions were this, and we shot this many birds, and they love telling people that we shot X thousand, amount of ducks on a particular season. Which, don't get me wrong, I love shooting as many ducks as I legally can, but there is a producer. There was this rivalry, I don't know if that's the right word, or competition, to where, like, this particular producer would badmouth another producer, or we would get badmouthed, especially in the beginning. I don't know. We got badmouthed a fair amount in the beginning. But I think some of that stemmed from the competition circuit, the calling competition circuit. There was always this kind of rivalry or who's better at calling. And what I learned when I really, really got into waterfowl hunting is that you don't have to be the best duck caller to kill a duck.
No.
You know, and Logan was the one who really kind of engraved that philosophy or mentality into me, because we were so dedicated to scouting. You know, you talk about your slogan being shoot him in the face. Our slogan is don't doubt, scout. Yeah. So we put a lot of time behind the windshield driving. And then, you know, not just because there's a bunch of birds using that field doesn't necessarily mean that that's an optimal spot to hunt, you know, like, so we put a lot of effort and time into watching their behaviors when they're in the field. And is there, you know, what's the entry? You know, we're not just scouting where the bird's at, we're scouting the field. We're scouting the behaviors of the bird in the field. What direction are they feeding? And what's the wind going to be on that particular day? Does it align with where the best hide's going to be? And so I say all of that to say that, you know, I did have some bad experiences. I felt it more in the waterfowl space than I did in the bow hunting space, because again, in the early stages, I was going to these, like SHOT Show, for example, with the Heartland bow hunter guys. And there was this brotherhood, you know, they would, like Mike and Sean from Heartland bow hunter, they would, you know, run into T-Bone or Michael Waddell or any number of those high profile people that are producers in the industry. And there was this just embracement of each other and lifting each other up. And I didn't feel that in the waterfowl industry is with other producers. With sponsors, it was completely different. You know, everybody was trying to wave each other's flag. But I guess I say all that to say that I'm glad that you didn't run into that. And so you haven't run into that with any other like coffee competitors?
Not really, but we all kind of stay in our own lane, I guess you'd say. We feel like we're not necessarily competing against each other, but trying to do the best we can to roll out products and,
well, there's this whole piece, there's this whole pie, right? And you just want a piece of the pie.
Right. And we want to do it right, and we want people to, you know, like our brand for doing it the right way and not be like other people. You know, you've got a choice. You can go down one path or the other to get to the end goal, and we just want to do it the right way.
Sure.
And, you know, with your deal, you have so many time slots on TV
that you're competing for.
You know, so you are competing head on probably against other shows. You know, we're trying to build our brand to a certain point, maybe even above that. But, you know, it's just, there's a lot of people in the industry that are there to build you up and help you along. And, you know, we've also seen other coffee companies come and go. And one thing that Jay have in our favor is we have time to grind it out. And, you know, we haven't been under pressure to, hey, we got to do this in 6 months, or we got to do this in a year, or we have 2 years and we're out of money. You know, we both own businesses, so we're able to grow this thing at our own pace, not grow too fast.
Right.
And really, our goal is to outgrind people. So at the end, you know, we're the only one left standing.
Yeah.
Per se in our industry,
right.
You know, so.
Or just you still want to be standing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You talked about a lot of the cool people that you met along the way, and that is true, man. Some of the people that I've met, that I otherwise, well, not even just people I met, just hunting experiences that I otherwise would have never, ever experienced had I not got into this industry. I remember when, like, for example, when you talk about different places to go hunting, Saskatchewan, your first experience in Saskatchewan, Buck, was when you got to, I mean, I know that was a debacle getting there. That's just a whole nother story.
I thought it was the greatest time of my life.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's the Mecca. It's beautiful up there. And really all it is just beautiful farmland with just a different terrain. You can just see for miles, and there's just potholes everywhere that are just loaded with all these different species of ducks, right? And so I remember, just even though all the BS that you went through with your, missing a flight and flights getting delayed, and then you getting there later than you wanted to get there, once you got there, you were just enamored with the beauty of Saskatchewan. And like, is it fair to say that had we not dove into this industry, what are the chances? I mean, maybe we would have made it up there, but we wouldn't have been in a position as quickly in our lives, whether it be for financial reasons or whatever the case may be, to experience something like that. Most people just hunt their home ground or their home area, and they don't have that. They don't have the luxury or the opportunity, the means to go outside and go to different states or a different territory to hunt ducks. So you talked about, just the network of people that you met. You guys have been able to travel outside of this kind of Missouri corridor to experience hunts that you otherwise probably would have never been able to, experience.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like, give me some examples.
Well, I remember you talk about that Saskatchewan trip. Remember, I lost my luggage. My gun didn't show up. My flight got delayed. I had to stay in Toronto. I left San Antonio, had to catch a flight, ended up in Toronto that night, and I looked on the map and I said, I'm 1,800 miles from Saskatoon. And so I was also when I woke up in San Antonio that morning. So I flew all day long, lost my luggage, landed and rented a car, bought a toothbrush, pair of sweatpants, hoodie, underwear, socks, everything I needed to get by. Luckily, you guys had clothes, and you're like, oh, man, that sucks. I'm sorry. And I was just like so happy to be there.
Yeah.
And we went out scouting one day, and I just remember the sun was shining on the barley fields, and I was like, this is where waterfowlers go when they die. This is heaven.
Yeah,
and it
really is.
It was just so beautiful. I might have been a little, weary after the voyage I was on, but
yeah,
it was a great time. But
it really was. But I also remember you guys are seeing on social media, well, you recently got to go to Manitoba, so we'll talk about that here in a minute, but you also got to go out east, I think. And didn't you do like a sea duck hunt? Yeah. I mean, that you would have never done that likely.
No. Right.
Right. So that's all because of a network of people that you met in this industry that offered you that opportunity to do that. How did that all come about, and what do you remember from that?
Yeah, we'd met Jeff Coates through social media and network of people, and Pit Boss Waterfowl, and just a great dude. And so Buck went out the first year. I didn't get to go the first year.
Yeah, the first year was a veterans hunt with JP.
That's right. Yeah. So JP, who we had met at the Ducks Expo, so he's an Army vet and has become good buddies of ours, lives in North Carolina. And he's just one of those guys that's like, we're going to hunt together. And usually, you know how it is. You meet so many people and it's, oh, yeah, we'll get out and hunt. And then you just never do. Like, time gets by on everybody. And he's like, no, we're going to hunt. So he set up a veterans hunt, and Buck went out and did that one the first year. And then second year, I got to go and just go out for fun. And so we went out, and yeah, it was incredible. I mean, the first day that we went out, it was like super high swells. And so it's nothing like I'd ever experienced before. So you're trying to, figure out your footing and how to level your gun right, and, the boat's going up and down.
Were you in layout boats for that?
No, we were in his big old, he's got a, what is it? How I can't remember, 40-foot boat or whatever he's got.
I think it's like 30.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah,
big aluminum boat.
Big aluminum boat.
Wow.
It's
awesome.
incredible. And so, just trying to figure that out and shoot ducks you never shot before, and they're just right off the top of the water. But it was a blast. And the second day, he was kind of, he was busting our balls that first day and then laughing at us on social media. And so it kind of pissed us off, to be honest. and so the second day it was calm, and Buck and I looked at each other and we're like, it's on. So I threw on some red dirt Texas country, and it's like, we're going to hammer the fuck out of these guys. So,
I was like, kill them all.
Yeah. And so
it was
I was
fun.
like, you're not going to laugh at us today. And I think we eliminated it out in like less than an hour. And
awesome.
But no, we wouldn't have had that experience without the connection in the industry.
Were you shooting longtails, old squaws, or,
Scoters?
Scoters.
Yep.
Yeah. I've never had, it never worked. So we've done a few sea duck episodes. Let's see, where did they go? They were up in the Boston Harbor one year, and then somewhere maybe off the coast, around somewhere up in New York area, Long Island. I don't know. But I wasn't able to go. But I also heard like there was some and again, this is specific to camera guys. Salt water and cameras are a terrible
Well, guns too.
They're guns as well,
Yeah.
no doubt. And so when you get out there and there is a rough tide, as they experienced, there's water splashing into the boat and guys are trying to focus on the bird and predicting the wave that is coming and the splash that be coming, and then protecting the camera as quickly as they can so it doesn't get wet. And that sounded like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah,
and when I heard about that, I was like, I don't really have any desire to go do this. Luckily, you guys didn't have to worry about that. But no, it sounds like an incredible experience that you otherwise wouldn't have ever experienced before. Manitoba, you did get to go up there. Was that last fall?
We were
Alberta.
Alberta. Sorry. I said Manitoba earlier. That was another kind of through the industry, networking, met somebody and had an opportunity to go up there, right?
Yeah, it was actually a trip that I bought at a Ducks Unlimited auction.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And a deal that I went to that trying to support the DU Artist of the Year, Jared Ducote.
Okay.
And, I was like, okay, I want to go there and show up and support the event, but I'm not here to, buy a bunch of stuff in the auction. And all of a sudden I looked around, I'm like, what? Wait a minute, a trip to Alberta for 8 hunters and gun rental and shells and lodging for how much? I'm in. And one of the DU guys ran me up $700 or $800 on top of what I paid, but it was a great time to get a bunch of friends and family together and go up there.
What do you remember about that? Was it different in Alberta than it was when you were with us in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, it was a little bit different. The land looked a little different. To me, it looked more like Missouri with some timber and fields mixed in, where, up there it seems like it's mostly fields.
It's
a little bit more
very
wide
open. Yeah.
Yep. This had, it reminded me of a lot of, the Midwest somewhere, during the winter.
Gotcha.
And
is there as many potholes up there in Alberta as there is in?
I didn't think so.
No? Okay.
I didn't think so. Not in the area we were at, but yeah, they did a great job. They're Black Dog Outfitters.
Okay.
We hunted morning and evening. They were doing all the scouting and
wow.
And it was incredible.
They worked their butts off.
Yep.
Yeah, they had great guides, scouts. Like
Yep.
they put us on some birds. And Ronnie, you would have been proud. I kind of was a squeaky wheel when I first got there and talked about how I didn't want to shoot snow geese all week.
Okay.
And I was like, if you can get us on some ducks.
Yeah.
And I think I said it enough times, and we got on.
Did
we did shoot some snows, but we got on a lot.
What time? That was October. Yeah,
mid-October last year,
which is a great time for those Judy snows. Yeah, I mean, if you watch Heartland Waterfowl, I'm kind of the guy who jokes, partially serious, doesn't like hunting snows. But I will tell you that there's something about hunting snows on the north side of the border that it is just completely different than it is when they get down. I mean, obviously, they're like anything. They're a lot more educated when they get down to Missouri.
Yep.
But you find a field of 30,000, 40,000 juvies, snow geese in Saskatchewan. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It is unbelievable. And they're so fun to scout, too, because there's so many of them, right? Where, if you're scouting ducks, you get excited about finding, 2,500, 3,000, ducks in a field. But, you're talking, 30, 40,000 snow geese, and you can shoot, I think it's 20 a piece, so it's a whole different game, hunting snow geese up there than it is down here. I don't know. What is some of your other experiences that you've, had that you otherwise wouldn't have experienced had you not gotten into the waterfowl industry? Anything come top of mind?
We got invited to a pretty exclusive private club in Arkansas and got to do some green timber hunting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. We sat there like the first 30 minutes of shooting hours and didn't even pull the trigger. We were watching.
They were just splash.
They were hitting,
It was
hitting limbs. And the funniest thing was I saw this mallard hen that, I assume it's so dark that they're seeing reflections off the water when they're coming down through these, holes in the trees. And I saw this hen fold up like she was going to land about 12 yards over the water and then just did a big belly flop pretty much. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was incredible.
I got one
Coast
that
of
you may not be
Texas.
thinking of.
Sure.
Jay didn't get the opportunity to be a part of this,
Oh yeah.
Pardon me. But shooting cranes in West Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the invite.
You know you're always invited,
I know.
but you were here and he was already in Texas.
Just like busting your balls.
But no, what I'm saying is that that's, something that I otherwise probably would have never experienced as just a normal everyday weekend warrior.
Mm-hmm.
But because I, am blessed to have this opportunity, I got to go to West Texas and hunt with Joe Palumbo and shoot cranes, which is a whole nother different experience of hunting waterfowl. What do you remember and you got to do that 2 or 3 times with us, I think, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3 times. I just remember we almost never had a bad day. Those guys know what they're doing, from the hide, to the decoys to the setup. And there were some mornings where it's like, okay, we're done. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's 8:30.
Done already. Well,
Yeah.
you can only shoot 3 apiece.
Yep.
So that makes it go pretty quick, especially if you got a bunch of good shooters.
Yeah. They're gigantic, and once they get in, they have a hard time getting out when you got some good shooters. So.
If they do it. That's the thing about them.
Yep.
It can be the most infuriating because it's not like a duck or a goose to where they will come and they'll see your spread, and sometimes they'll circle a little bit. And I don't want to make it sound like that never happens, because occasionally it does. But in most cases, if they don't commit on the first approach, then they're just going to fly it right on by and go somewhere else. Don't matter how much you call to them or whatever. They have incredible eyesight, and if they see something they don't like, they're boogieing. They're on their way. But there's been, I think, maybe a handful of times I can think of all the years that we've gone down there to where Joe just continues to hammer in on the call, and he's got him to flip and turn and set in. So, but it's just another one of those cool experiences that we're so blessed, man.
Yeah.
So blessed.
Yeah. Jordan and Jason from Hella Dry, they had us down for their dove hunt in West Texas, Lubbock, last year.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
That was a blast. I remember just like, after just your arm being worn out after the first hour and a half, just like looking at buck and was like, this is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So that was a good time. It was a good like industry. It was like it was cool. It was like we see all the people at shows and we see each other at every single show, but it's like we're so busy talking to clients and doing all that we don't get a ton of time to hang out.
Right.
So it's kind of the one time a year they're like, hey, let's all come and just hang out together. We'll shoot some doves, and then we'll, hang out and drink some beer and just have fun together instead of having, we're all over the place trying to take care of clients. So it's a cool thing that they put together there.
You guys have anything on the books for this fall or winter that you're going that is different than anything you've ever done before?
One I went to last year was Paloma Fest at Spec Ops down Uvalde, Texas. So it's not terribly far from where I live there in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Luke Bledsoe does a hell of a job. He's, if you're going to hunt Texas, he's one that I definitely recommend, but he puts together kind of an industry hunt kind of like that. And it's on a beautiful ranch that has a lazy river and a bowling alley and stuff like that. Yeah.
What?
Yep. So Tex was there last year, the Turtle Box guys.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an industry thing, and we had a great time last year. So looking forward to going back to that one. Other than that, it's just, everything's kind of in the wind. We just kind of go with the flow. And
well, let me ask this then. Is there something that you haven't done that you are like is a bucket list item that you want to do?
I'm intrigued with the Alaska stuff, the Bering Sea.
Oh, wow.
Haydack or, up that direction. Doing it once.
So like a king eider hunt or I think they actually closed the season. We have a guy on our team, Alex Dysadu, who shot an emperor goose. And if I remember correct, I might have this wrong, so don't hold me to this, but I think that they actually shut that down to where for the time being, or at least at the time that I heard about this, that you couldn't draw or at least non-residents couldn't draw an emperor goose. But that was I don't know if you guys ever saw that episode, but
I saw that.
That was an awesome episode.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a really cool episode. They did a great job producing that one. One that I've always wanted to do is, and I don't know, they say California is the place to do it. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble by speaking too honestly here. I'm not crazy about going to California. But cinnamon teal. to go on a cinnamon. Have you ever shot a cinnamon
No.
teal or been on a cinnamon teal
Never
hunt?
seen one.
I would say that might be like there's people who have their bucket list species that they want to shoot. We've got guys on our team, like when you talked about going to Alaska, they shot harlequin.
Mhm.
You know, that's like a golden rail duck.
Yep.
I never got to experience that or a king eider. But I would say like the top of my bucket list that I haven't been able to yet accomplish is the cinnamon teal. Go ahead, talk for a second. I did.
Yeah.
Well, you need to go down and see old buddy Paul at Eldorado Outfitters. He'll put you
Yeah.
on cinnamon teal.
I think we just need
Does
to make
he have
that
some down there?
We need to make
Yep.
that a trip.
Well, we're talking to him about maybe doing an episode down there this coming season.
Old buddy, old
There you go.
Paul. Come on,
Wink,
now.
wink, nudge,
Come
nudge.
on now.
So funny thing, Paul had one of the litters from my childhood that we had golden retrievers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so in the litter, we ended up with the runt, and that was little Ann, and he had old Dan from where the Redfern grows. So
No way.
Paul and I had sibling dogs.
Oh, that's
growing
awesome.
up. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, cinnamon teal I think would be a cool one. Do you guys have are you big into taxidermy? Like you shoot one and
Every once in a while.
so I told myself when I first got into this that because I'm not one of those who whenever I shoot a banded bird, I put the band on my lanyard. Nothing to anybody who does that because nearly everybody does. But that's just not my jam. I don't want to flaunt a lanyard full of bands because I think it's sometimes perceived that maybe you're a better hunter if you've got more bands. Because there are those guys, I've literally heard this, people who will buy bands on eBay
So dumb.
or they didn't even shoot the bird.
Or they stole them from
They- right.
as their guide, and they stole them from their clients. Yeah.
I've heard that too.
Yep.
And they put them on their lanyard just to make themselves look cool, which I think is the most ridiculous, stupidest thing I've ever heard. But I've always said that I'm not going to put a mallard on the wall. I to this day do not have a mallard taxidermy. I've got pintails. We did shoot pintails with Joe down in West Texas. It was a kind of a unique situation, but they were magnums, and it was the first week of January, and they had really long sprigs, big magnum pintails. So it was one of those where I'm never going to shoot a pintail that's going to look better than this. These are two that I'm going to keep. So I've got a couple pintails. I got a speckle belly that I shot with buck in Saskatchewan. That was all tarred up in just a beautiful speck. I got a couple banded geese hanging on the wall, Canada geese, graders. Oh, and then I have a cross. I have I think it's a lesser Canada cross.
Oh,
it has a
nice.
white head.
Yeah.
But it had a gray beak, even though the taxidermist screwed it up and painted a pink beak, or painted the beak pink and the feet pink. It was actually kind of a grayish. So it was a hybrid looking bird, which was unique. Shot that in the Front Range of Colorado. But I don't have a mallard. I don't have a widgeon. I don't have any other duck species. And the only reason I don't is because I've always been holding out for a band, which is so stupid because the chances of me, waiting until then, I just need to pick one out and just do it. But do you guys have every species, or is there a certain species that you want to, connect on to get it hanging on your wall?
I don't. Not off the top of my head, I can't. I think of any that I have to have.
So you didn't get.
I think
you didn't do
going back
any
to your
your sea ducks. You didn't keep any of those.
No, we didn't really get any mature
Oh.
colorful anything. They were all pretty
A lot of them are common scoters,
Yeah.
which are just all black.
black.
Yeah.
The surf scoters are the pretty one that have the white on the face and the orange
Yeah.
beaks, and those are a little bit
You didn't
hard
get
to
in
come
any
by.
longtails, huh?
No, we might have shot a wood duck on accident. No, seriously, we had a wood duck sneak in.
We had
I don't-
two Drake wood ducks.
Yeah, two Drake wood ducks sneak in
Wow.
on the coast. We were in
That's
Ocean City,
weird.
Maryland. It
They,
was strange.
They came in.
I don't think
with
we shot. I
a
think it was-
flock of about 20 scoters, and I pulled up, and all of a sudden, those are all black ducks. All of a sudden, I see two white bellies, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm shooting them, and it was like, poof, poof. They're like, who shot the wood ducks? And I was like,
Was that a taboo? No.
They're not.
it was kind of a gray area whether you could shoot them out there or not. So
Oh.
So there's certain marked areas right off because we were in Ocean City. So there's certain zones that you can't shoot puddle ducks.
Okay.
So you can't shoot black ducks in certain areas or the wood ducks in that case.
Mhm.
You have to shoot them inland or something. So technically, we weren't supposed to shoot those with
Maybe.
ducks, but maybe allegedly.
Yeah.
So you don't really have any like anything that comes to mind. Like I can think of like a few.
I've gotten a few in the last couple of years. So that spec right there, that's up on the wall. I shot that with Jake Rogers out here in.
It's got a band on it.
Yeah, sure does.
Was it banded? No. Okay.
No, it just looks better in here with the band on it.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think
But-
that was a turkey band I got at a banquet or something. I just squeezed on there.
Okay.
I'm like, this will be fun.
Yeah, no,
Where
I
did
never
you shoot that one at?
Jake Rogers' field, his grandpa's field, just north of town right here.
Yep.
We were out there one day, and we had all Canada Goose decoys, and that was it.
Okay.
And there was all kinds of specs using this field and nothing else. And they would kind of give us a half pass a couple times. And so I was like, they come back that close enough, Jake, we're going to unload on these.
Okay.
So sure enough, came by and we both limited out. And
Nice.
yeah, and that was one of them. I was like, oh, that's going on the wall. So
I think of certain ducks that I would like to get mounted. I guess that's the best way to say it. Stuffed, mounted, whatever. A blonde duck. I would love to get a blonde duck mallard. That would be cool. And I would also love to get a mallard pintail hybrid. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Oh, they're
Those are
so
cool.
cool
Mhm.
looking. So those are two that come to mind. The cinnamon teal, I mentioned that already. I'd really like to get a good storm widgeon, like that's really plumed out with the with the white head. We had some that were pretty good down in Oklahoma. Again, another one of those deals where just incredible hunts that I otherwise would have never got to experience.
Yeah, I wish when I bought this place and started, putting up decor that I would have just mounted one mallard a year to hang from the ceiling.
That would be cool.
And then all of a sudden you got the whole, Cabela's looking ceiling going on. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to start doing that. And,
Right.
had some rough years
Sure.
recently. So,
Sure.
but
What do you see different about, do you see anything different about what duck hunting was overall speaking when you say first few years you got started to what it is today and why it might be different?
I mean, I started in the mid 80s. So, I mean, I don't remember it fully, but supposedly, that was, heavy droughts. So like, I don't remember coming back with, I call my bonus dad, my stepdad. And, like we didn't have stringers full every single time. There was years where you just didn't have any water at all. So I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's always going to ebb and flow and change over time.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have weather patterns. You're gonna have dry years. You're gonna have abundance years. You're gonna have years you can get crops in or other vegetation to flood, and some years you can't. So, I mean, I think it's been consistent, about the same. You have ups and downs, and it makes the good years even better.
Yeah, I would say the past 5 years, winter has been slow to get here, which helps the birds out. And then another thing that's hard on them is the pressure's higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I remember in this area when there's maybe one guide service, something like that. Now you could probably count a dozen or 20.
Wow.
It's just everything's leased up, and there's somebody in every field, it seems like. And I think that's true going from Dakotas down through Oklahoma and Texas. And so I think these birds are getting smart going, well, I'm not going to, as the seasons up north start to close,
Mm-hmm.
they know they're safe and they're not going to push any further than they have to.
Well, they don't really have a reason if the weather's not pushing them.
Right. So I think they've gotten smart. They're said, I'm going to ride out the weather as long as I can in these states that close early, and they're just not going to migrate like they used to back in the day.
Yeah, I think flyways have also altered over the years too, whether it's because of water or not water, weather, or hunting pressure or farming practices. I think there's a variety of different reasons that can alter the flyway being, different. Yeah, I mean, there is, I don't know, like you've hunted this area for a long time. It seems like there's a lot more specs you would see now than there was, say, 15 years ago.
We saw cranes last year.
Right.
and you just didn't really see
or
cranes.
swans.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Swans have definitely gotten a lot more populated the last, 10 to 15 years.
I'm not trying to kill a swan up here. Obviously,
No,
that's
but
illegal, but I'm just saying
a
you
lot
see
more.
more of them,
Mhm.
now than you do back then.
Yeah.
Oh, another duck I was thinking of that I would really like to shoot that I've never done, or I don't know that I've ever even seen one while hunting, is a black duck.
Yeah.
And I think
I tried to stalk some and shoot those when I was in Maryland, but I couldn't get close enough. No.
I think that would, if I shot a black duck, that would definitely be one I would put on the wall, regardless if it was banded or not. I don't know, man. We're super blessed to do this. I'm so grateful for you guys, and your friendship, and the kind of how you took me under your wing, no pun intended, back in the day. Gosh, however many years ago that was. Was it 2009?
2009.
Really?
Yeah, it's when I moved back.
Because I was thinking it was like 2006, but
I think it was 2007 when we had that red hoodie hunt.
okay, that makes sense then. Right. So, gosh, coming up on nearly 20 years.
Ooh.
Wow, unbelievable.
Back when you were rocking Ronnie, Q104.
I've never gone by Rockin' Ronnie. Jay is the only one who calls me Rockin' Ronnie. Everyone else calls me Papa Ron. I call Jay every time. Every time he answers the phone, Rockin' Ronnie. I don't know. What you guys got anything else do you want to share before we close this thing out? Anything that's on the horizon with Dirty Duck Coffee, or anything that you want to share with the fine peeps watching?
I'd say just be on the lookout for more of these ready-to-drink cold brews and other beverages.
And other beverages that could transpire outside of cold brews.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Should we just leave it
Just
at that?
leave it at that.
All right. And
Yeah, it's going to be a good summer. We'll put it that way.
I'm looking forward to that.
So-
And no other big hunting plans. I mean, you find it harder to hunt as much as you used to because now you're in the industry? Going back to kind of the thing that Buck was, warning me of when I got into this was, of course, it was a little bit different for me because I was actually hunting. But like when you make the hunting industry your job, then it sometimes can prevent you from hunting as much as you'd like to. Do you find that happening to you guys?
No, I think it's opened up opportunities to do things that we wouldn't have.
Yeah, but you're still, you're still dads. You got kids. You got responsibilities. Does it, and does it make it harder to break away? Because you also have your full-time jobs too. Like Jay has Apex Windows, right? Did I say that right?
Yep.
And so that's your full-time job. You've got Heath shooting and mech, right?
Yep.
So I guess we could talk about that. What are you guys? I know, but for everybody who's watching, what are your real jobs?
Yeah. I own Apex Energy Solutions, and we're in the home improvement space. So we work with like the more affluent homeowners and do all their windows and doors and things like that. So it
sounds like a pretty demanding job, but is that more seasonal to where then?
No, it's, to a degree. It's year round. especially with the way that the weather's been, we don't get super harsh winters the last 5 or 6 years, and owned that for 9 years. But you just make it work. I think at the end of the day, like if you want to do it, you go and you plan it and you get after it. I'd say the weather more has kind of cut down on our hunting around here more than anything.
Yeah.
It's been so warm. There's days that you're like, it's not even worth going out.
Sure.
Like you're just going out to, shoot the shit with your buddies and hang out and hopefully catch, a couple of ducks that are just in the area. But,
Yeah, and I get kind of spoiled because I can kind of cherry pick days because I'm up here most of December, November and December. So, if it's going to be 65 degrees that day and I know the ducks are stale, I'll be like, I got other things I can be working on.
Sure.
So it just kind of, waiting on the weather, waiting on the ducks. And there's days where it's nice to get out and enjoy the weather when it's slow. But, for the most part, I like to wait for the good days, or at least feel like I got a good fighting chance of, scratching them out. But, it's not all about the kill. It's about the experience and being with the people.
The camaraderie, the brotherhood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was probably my favorite thing about waterfowl hunting. Well, it wouldn't be a Behind the Blind podcast if we didn't do the Ducked Up question of the episode. The Ducked Up questions brought to you by Dirty Duck Coffee. If your coffee sucks, it ain't the duck. The preferred coffee of choice in the blind or around the breakfast table for Heartland Waterfowl and waterfowl hunters in every flyway. Save on a variety of blends by using promo code HW10 at dirtyduckcoffee.com. Here we go. These are the same questions that I've asked Nolan May of Carlson's Choke Tubes and Terry Denman of Mojo Outdoors, all right? What is the most ridiculous superstition you've ever had or have heard of about waterfowl hunting? Do you guys have any superstitions, or do you know of anybody that has a superstition when it comes to, we run around with waterfowl hunters, but I guess it could be anybody who does any type of hunting. Do you have a grandpa or a dad that had a weird superstition?
I don't think so, but I think it's kind of quirky how, duck hunters, if one group doesn't finish, they're think, oh, it's the decoy. Should we move the mojo? Should we? It's always a changing plan.
Okay.
And I always get a kick out of that, because once you've hunted long enough, sometimes you're like, well, it has nothing to do. Maybe it was just that group of ducks has been here. They're educated. Maybe they didn't even want to land here at all. And then the next group might come right in and finish because you're doing everything right.
There's always that one guy who's out of the blind moving decoys around.
Yeah.
It's normally you.
I do it because I get bored.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's something to do to get out and move around.
Yes, I would agree with that. I will say that I try to not do it after the very first volley. I will do it if they're doing the same, or if they're landing on a hard edge, or they're not centering upright, then maybe we need to shift some decoys around. But I typically wait after one volley or after a few volleys to make a move there. But no other superstitions that you can think of?
Not really on superstitions. Like, my dad was always adamant about if you had any speck of white showing on your clothing, or like non-camo, like he was the one. There's pictures of us in the blind, and then my dad in the background, and he's got a full camo face mask on.
Okay.
Like every single time, it's camo mask was on every single time you're in the blind. And
he would have hated me on that very first hunt where I was wearing a red hoodie. He would have been.
But he would have loved you in your blackface.
Yeah. Yes, he would have. All right, let's go to question number 2. If someone made a Hollywood movie about the real behind-the-scenes life of Dirty Duck Coffee, who would play you, and what would it says here, what would the title be? But let's just go with who. If you were doing a real life behind the scenes of Dirty Duck Coffee, who would play you as the actor?
I'm not a Hollywood guy. So
this is why we call it the ducked up question.
Yeah, because I can't think of Hollywood people.
No? Don't got anything?
No, not off the top of my head.
What
do you think?
For you?
Yeah.
I'm not really a Hollywood guy either. This question usually works better for people who watch movies, but I asked this question to a couple guys who don't. Gosh, I don't know about you. I'm trying to think of a big burly guy in the industry, or not in the industry, but in Hollywood that would play Buck, and I'm drawing a blank on that. You don't have anybody that comes to mind?
Chris Rock.
Sure. All right, let's just move on then. What invention changed waterfowl hunting more? The layout blind, the spinning wing decoy, or the cell phone?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I'd say the spinner.
Yeah, spinner for sure.
What do you think? Because I will tell you, when I asked this question to the spinning
is that
wing,
spinner, or was it motion decoy? Period.
Well, I mean, it says here spinner, but yeah, I mean, the like the Mojo King Mallard, for example.
Well, I'd say initially the spinner, but going back to the cell phone, the Instagram exposure and all that stuff.
Well, not just that, but like think of the Onyx Hunt app. Yeah. Like just how much that has helped and changed. Yep. I mean, just the different ways that you can scout digitally from your cell phone. So like even when I was asking Terry Denman, I always say that wrong, from Mojo Outdoors, he said, bias as a bias, he would want to say that, but it's hard to compete with how much cell phones have changed hunting and is helped. So it's been and even Nolan May said the same thing, that the cell phone was their answer. But the thing about the spinning wing decoy, and Terry had a really good answer to that too, was, which by the way, if you've missed that episode, you should go check that out on your favorite podcast platforms or on the Heartland Waterfowl YouTube channel. The ducks got familiar with the spinning wing decoy.
True.
When it first came out, they were landing right on top of it. But the thing that he always said is that it was never made with the purpose of it being that. It was always for long range attraction. And so when people put the spinner out there and they think, oh, we got to pull this out because they're, well, that's why they have the remotes. If you feel like that it's flaring them, you can turn them off. But the attraction was the flicker or the flash, I guess, from a long range to get them in. And then from there, we'll see what happens. But people got so used to seeing them just drop right on top. And then people would see them way up north. And then by the time they got down to Kansas, Missouri, or even Arkansas, then So anyway, it's just interesting to hear other duck hunters give answers to those questions. Let's go to the last one then. What's the one thing you wish non-hunters actually understood about waterfowl hunting?
Not about the kill. It's about the entire experience.
That's a good answer.
I love the off season as much as I love in season.
So what does your off season look like, Jay?
I think it's
because you have a hunt club, like you got your own little spot. So you put in work to, put food in the ground and, actually pull water from the river to flood your fields, so there is actual, off-season work that goes into creating a habitat for the ducks.
Yeah. And those are the memories that I remember just as much as the hunting growing up with my dad is out there doing the work. And then the lessons that you learn from the work.
Sure.
If I didn't have those lessons, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. You just don't show up and ducks are there. You can get lucky every once in a while, but to consistently have a place, you've got to work it nonstop. And so, but then also just the strategy behind it. So we're going to move this, dirt here, to open up this lane here to, just have a better area to, fixing blinds and maintaining blinds and just, doing all that stuff in the off season. It just doesn't happen just by luck. There's a lot of strategy behind it. And then just at the end of the day, rolling up your sleeves and just getting to work and doing it. So yeah, we're always, I keep tinkering with things all the time. So I'm never satisfied. If it wasn't a great year, it's okay. What can we do to make it better next year?
Sure. And
then finding ways to do that. And so this year we just, put in some berms and things to create tighter pockets so that the water can go into a couple of areas if we have a drought.
Sure.
And so, yeah, it's just all that stuff. That's what I love the most. So, and I don't think people understand that part of it.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. What about you, Buck?
I would say, bah humbug.
Okay.
I wish non-hunters would realize we can wish Jesus a happy birthday without cutting into my hunting days. Okay. Christmas is interfering with my season sometimes. Nah, I'm joking around.
I know you are, but nothing else. You don't have anything that you really wish non-hunters understood about what we do?
No, I just really don't like Christmas.
Okay. Bah humbug. All right. So anyway, those are the Ducked Up questions of the episode brought to you by Dirty Duck Coffee. Check them out at dirtyduckcoffee.com. And don't forget to use promo code HW10 to save. So, hey, thank you guys once again. It's great to be back. It's kind of like a home away from home to be in the actual Dirty Duck here in Mound City, Missouri. A lot of great memories up here. There's a lot of memories that
we don't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah. I actually, I don't know if it seems like we were sitting in this general vicinity one night and everybody went to bed and it's almost like time for the sun to come up. And Buck and I decided that we were going to go to the Eagle's Nest, right? Is that or what you formerly known as the Eagle's Nest? Is that what the place to eat breakfast?
I thought you were going to tell the crappie fishing story.
Well, we can tell that story too. Or can we? We did go crappie fishing one time.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Nothing stupid happened then. No, we just stayed up all night and decided to go crappie fishing. No, but the story I was about to tell was we decided that we were going to go eat breakfast after staying up all night partying at the Dirty Duck. And it's a Sunday morning and people are coming in to eat breakfast in their Sunday best. And we look like a couple guys that stayed up all night drinking. And Buck decided right as he was going to pay the bill that he was going to hit this bottle of mustard and spray me. And I'm wearing, of course, he's a KU guy and I'm a K-State guy. And he sprayed my K-State hoodie with mustard. And I got so pissed off that I grabbed that mustard and I squeezed it and I flung it and mustard was flying everywhere. And all these people are sitting at the Eagles like, what is wrong with these two? So anyway,
a couple of KU and KSA people for you.
Yep, just going at it. Anyway, love you guys genuinely from the bottom of my heart.
Too, man.
Thank you. Appreciate your friendship and appreciate your partnership with Heartland Waterfowl. So we'll wrap up this episode of the Behind the Blind podcast, again brought to you by Double T British Kennels. For more than 20 years, Double T British Kennels have imported dogs directly from Great Britain to build superior bloodlines. Top of the line dogs are proven in the field in major field trials. So learn more about them at britlabs.com. Tell them the Heartland Waterfowl sent you. For Buck, Heath, and Jay Peterson, I'm Ronnie Philips, and that's another episode of Behind the Blind from the headquarters of Dirty Duck Coffee.